Hello, everyone. This is Gary Gomes. I'm speaking to you from the same time, same location. We'll be talking about Vedic astrology. Uh, I haven't changed where I am. I haven't dyed my hair, so it looks a little bit lighter, and you can see it's a little bit browner in this. This not quite so gray, although it is gray. But my other computers in the shop uh, being stabilized after um, months of having a cracked chassis because one of my lovable cats stepped on it and sent it hurling to the ground. Uh, but he's a great cat, so I'm not angry at him, although he's agreed to pay for it. And let's see now. So let's talk about Vedic astrology. So I just want to explain why the background looks slightly different than it normally does. And we'll go from there. So I'm just going to do a normal layout this week, not focus so much um, on different countries and what to expect for the year from them. I'm also going to leave the discussion of Chinese astrology for next weekend, because that's really right before the start of the year of the dragon, year of the wood dragon. And wood dragon years, or dragon years in particular, tend to be really momentous years. They happen every 12 years. The last dragon year we had was 2012. The one before that was 2000. And so 2012, there wasn't a change in administration in the United States, but in 2000 there was. The year before, the dragon year before that was 1988, and that was a change. There was a new president. The year before that was 1976. There was a new president. The year before that was 1964, and that was the year that Lyndon Johnson won. And 1952, that was Dwight Eisenhower. 1940, that was the unprecedented third term of FDR. That was in 1940. 1928 was when Herbert Hoover was elected. 2016, that was when Woodrow Wilson got his second term, promising not to send us to war and then sending us to war. So there's always some kind of disruptive element in the year of the dragon. The last wood dragon cycle was, here we go back, because there are 5 animals, I believe. And so we'll talk about this just a little bit. There are 5 animals or 5 elements, in Chinese astrology. So the last wood dragon year was 1960. I want to say 1964. So that was when Lyndon Johnson took over as president of the United States in a resounding victory after John F. Kennedy was assassinated and Johnson took over. I don't necessarily think, now again, the major planetary periods of the United States were different at that particular time. There are different elements working right now, but it was actually the start of a major societal change in the United States. So I think one of the things we can expect to see is maybe, and if we go back 60 years before that, that was the reform or the progressive movement in the United States, in which they were trying to um, put greater controls on big business. Um, the astronomical placements are very different from 1904 to now, to 1964 to now, although there are some similarities. So I think we can expect some change in leadership, whether or not that means that Donald Trump is elected president again, or whether Joe Biden retires or somebody else comes along to take his place from within his own party. We'll see some kind of a change. But so I think, but I don't want to dwell on that too much. I'll talk about that a little bit more next week, because we had large societal changes happening in 1964 in the United States, as well as political changes. So that was essentially the start of the civil rights movement. The Civil Rights Act was passed, or the Voting Rights Act was passed, excuse me, in 1965, and there were a great many changes that happened in the latter half of the 60s that were very disruptive to the United States. But if we look at Indian astrology, that was also because the United States was in what's called a K2 major planetary period, which is very different from a kind of a major plane. It has similarities, but it's very different to the major planetary period that we're in right now. So I'm going to go to the screen, pull up a chart. By the way, if you'd like a reading with me, or if you'd like to study with me, just contact me at 508-525-0001, and I'll be happy to talk with you, or however else you want to communicate with me. I'm fairly easy to reach, and I'm more than happy to discuss your options for both readings and study. All right, so we're going to pull up a now chart right now. And my software is a little bit different as well. So just give me a second. I have found it kind of interesting that we have had a lot of motion both in okay, so hopefully you can see that. Let me try it again though. Stop the share. It looks like that didn't share. So essentially what's happening right now is we're experiencing what I would like to call 2 steps forward and 1 step back in terms of the world stage and in terms of politics, and also in terms of the economy. So we have, as of right now, when I'm talking to you, it's January 27th, 11:34:59 a.m. And so one of the things, regardless of where the rising sign is right now, one of the things you can see is that Jupiter's in the 12th house. Saturn's aspecting Jupiter. So that's giving what I would call punitive treatments in legal areas. And what do I mean by that? Well, basically, you have both, you have essentially all sides of the political realm experiencing some form of scandal or some kind of upset, all the way from the Trump trials, so in some of the more serious trials, and when I say serious, the ones that would stop him from running for president, he seems to be having some kind of an advantage right now. So essentially, the case in Georgia has been thrown into disarray because of allegations of conflict of interest with the attorney general in that state. Biden is also experiencing some setbacks because of what I would call an inability to get things resolved internationally. And also, he's facing basically opposition from half the states in the United States over his desire to cut the wire, cut the wire between Texas and Mexico. So that, and he's also experiencing some setbacks in terms of his son. Trump is experiencing financial setbacks because the two cases he's being hit with right now with negative judgments are connected to the defamation lawsuit and the financial penalties that he would have to face for in New York, the Letitia James case. I had to stop and think for a second. My apologies. So again, none of these things are irretrievable situations. Trump seems to be doing well, more or less politically. Biden is not doing well politically, but it's really too early. Just from my experience, it's really a little bit too early to judge as to whether or not this will affect the election. And and there are a lot of things that are still wild cards for both candidates. But if you look at the chart, Saturn's at 11 degrees 45 minutes of Aquarius. Sun is at 13 degrees 1 minute of Capricorn. Mercury, Venus, and Mars are all together in the same sign in the 8th house. And again, this indicates kind of a pattern of lying that's going on. I think you'll get a little bit of relief from this when Venus and Mercury change signs in about 2 weeks. Well, Mercury will change signs in about 1 week, so you'll get essentially some truthfulness come out during that particular point in time. But Mars is really, it's really not, the Mercury-Mars conjunction isn't going to go away really for another couple of months when Mercury can really pull ahead. And even with that, Mercury and Mars are going to be pretty much involved with each other for most of the year. It's really not a good time for getting the truth about things, just in general. In terms of foreign conflicts, Venus is still in Mula Nakshatra, which is a very disruptive nakshatra. It's essentially it's a total war nakshatra, total destruction nakshatra. The one thing that's benefiting it is that Jupiter is actually aspecting this conjunction over here, so that will help things. But one of the reasons that things are locked, that they're not moving forward in any kind of clear way, is because Jupiter is under Saturn's aspect, and that's stopping the flow of Jupiter's energy, giving opportunities to people or resolving issues. And usually if Jupiter's aspected by Saturn, there's always this push me, pull you kind of activity taking place in the chart. That doesn't mean it's not a good thing. Sometimes it's very good. But it's been fascinating in terms of we have Rahu in this particular sign. It's been fascinating, all the political scandals that have been coming out, especially within the United States, but also all around the world. And I think, and also some of the fraud allegations that have been popping up, and all of the suspicion of large institutions that have been popping up. And, so you can look on a very mundane level. You can look at the Carrie Lake allegations against the Republican Party in Arizona. She alleged that essentially she was bribed not to run, or she was offered money not to run. Excuse me. You can also look at certain other things, like the Supreme Court saying that social media outlets can work with government in order to ascertain acceptable boundaries of behavior. So that's really not a direction that I was hoping for, but again, I understand why it's being done, because you do need some kind of rules. But I think that the thing that bothers me is that this is not really an activity of the government controlling the media, but I think the government having undue influence over businesses. And again, like I said, I understand perfectly why it was done. I understand to a certain extent the legal reasoning behind it, but I'm just basically kind of disappointed by it personally. The other thing is, if you go over here, we still have that Jupiter-Mars exchange. So essentially, there'll continue to be an ideological war over the next few months, regardless of some people trying to. So one of the more interesting discussions I've seen lately is that some sources are, because it looks like Trump is going to be the presumptive nominee of the Republicans, but again, that's not a sure thing. A lot could happen between now and then. they're trying to normalize him a little bit. They're trying to make him seem less of a threat. And other people are getting really, really upset about that. And I understand the reasoning. I understand the reasoning on both sides. It depends on your political position. But I think one of the things we're going to be kind of like locked in this pattern, in this ideological pattern for the better part of the year, at least up until May, but I would say even longer because Rahu is in Pisces, and that's essentially a disruptive combination, even more disruptive than Rahu in Aries, because essentially Rahu makes us suspicious or dissatisfied with anything we take on faith. It'll make every side criticize or distrust the other. Moving over to, so, and this isn't just happening in the United States. So I think recent polling, just to cherry pick results, recent polling indicates that Netanyahu would only get he would get the lowest number of seats, or put it this way, his party would come in third place if elections were held today. In England, the Conservative Party, younger people are moving away from the Conservative Party just because it's I'm just trying to think of a good way to say it without insulting a political scene I don't know that much about, but they're moving away from quote unquote more traditional party structures. People in the United States, I mean, RFK Jr. is polling at 21%, which is the highest since H. Ross Perot did in the 1990s. So I think there is this general dissatisfaction. We are going to see a lot of breaks. It doesn't mean that Trump or Biden won't be the candidate, although it looks a little bit more difficult for Biden right now than for Trump. But again, that's currently. And this could still flip a lot. So we have a significant eclipse coming up in April and another significant eclipse coming up in October. The luck of Trump's chart is affected, and the competitiveness of Biden's chart is affected by both eclipses. So it'll be really interesting to see how this pans out. I haven't looked at people who have been proposed as presidential candidates in case Joe Biden backs out. I think it's a little bit premature, but I'll probably be looking at those charts over the next couple of months. So right now we have this very, very weird situation that there's still some danger to the oil supply. Saturn's aspecting Jupiter, and Jupiter rules the natural ninth house in the chart. So again, that does tend to mean that there will be problems internationally. There will be problems with supplies. There may be a need to, which I think is the worst way to handle inflation, a need to raise interest rates. We'll see what happens over the next couple of months. But my general feeling right now is that the Saturn aspect on Jupiter is going to get really intense around April, and I think you're going to see maybe even some rebellions and some more riots. Also, one of the things that I mentioned before is traditionally, the United States have been very big allies of Israel. This switch, especially on the Democratic left, moving away from Israel, and also the switch on the Republican side, moving away from support of Ukraine, is unusual and very, very outside the mainstream of both parties. I think these are like two of the biggest events, because Republicans essentially have traditionally always been big defense spenders. And Republicans were before Clinton. Republicans were the biggest neoconservatives in the game. However, after Bill Clinton became president, that shifted around a bit, but essentially most of the administration changes I've seen through the years have been only to the extent of degree, not of totally getting away from interfering in other countries. And the most concerted effort I saw in that particular direction was when President Carter was in office, when there was a lot of support in the Senate for that particular move. And even President Carter did that. Even President Carter interfered in domestic politics of other countries. So it's just, like I said, it's just been a matter of a degree, not of practical application. Jupiter's aspecting Moon, so you should see some meaningful talks over the next week or so. Jupiter's aspecting Venus, Mercury, and Mars, so you'll see a lot more what I would call panicky speech coming out, a lot more virulent speech coming out. And I think that's something that we're going to have to be careful about, is people not getting riled up and getting violent over the next few months. That's a concern I have, whether it be from the left or the right. And I think this is already happening in other countries. There are a lot of countries, especially in Europe, who are getting very, very, very worried about immigration patterns. And again, I have to point out, some of the people are bad people, okay? Some of the people are just concerned about whether or not they can support it. There's even a movie in Germany, who is essentially the largest actor in the European Union, to have Germany leave the European Union, which will be, that could essentially destroy the European Union, because essentially they've been doing most of the bankrolling of it. They've been by far, excuse me, the largest contributors, and they've also been the ones that a lot of European countries hate, because they've also been limiting. They've been engaged in these very strong austerity measures for countries that are stumbling or failing. So it'll be kind of a double-edged sword. And China, if we go over to the east, so let's go over to the east, which is a rising sign. China seems kind of stuck in an economic morass. We'll look at the map later. And so also does Southeast Asia to a very large extent. So again, we're not really going to see, I've noticed in certain areas that I look at, I've seen prices coming down from for Eastern imports. But if they can't, if oil can't be shipped or other goods can't be shipped through the Middle East, then they'll have to go around South Africa. That'll add cost even outside of the cost of oil and other products. So we're sort of like teetering on this not necessarily on an economic downturn, but unless things get resolved pretty quickly, we're kind of at an economic precipice. And the next 3 to 4 months will tell the tale on that. All right. And that's actually consistent with the chart because the Saturn aspect on Jupiter isn't going to be over until the end of April. So let's go over to your individual charts. And we have Jupiter is in the first house for Aries rising. It's right near the middle of the sign, which is a good placement. As a matter of fact, right now, quite a few planets, or quite a few significant planets, are right near the middle of the sign, so where the benefics are. So Sun is in the middle of Capricorn. Jupiter is close to the middle of Aries, and Moon changes signs every day, so we're not going to pay attention to that. And Venus is close to the middle of Sagittarius. When the benefics are like right in the middle of the sign, they tend to be the strongest. Even malefics in the middle of the sign, that tends to be the strongest placement for a chart in Vedic, for a planet, in Vedic astrology. So you're going to see increased government dominance over the next few months, increased attention to rule of law over the next few months, and even some lawyerly calculations over the next few months. But for Aries, over the next couple of weeks, actually a relatively good time for financial prosperity. Basically, good luck with relationship partners and increased ability to fulfill ambitions or goals. Children will seem to be a little bit difficult or a little bit high strung. But also, at least from the chart, this is essentially a good chart for Aries rising. The only chart that's a little bit only part of the chart that's a little bit difficult is this Rahu in the 12th house, which can give frustrations over expenses or frustrations over luck. But it's not really a bad placement, just so long as you can keep your expenses down and avoid compulsory shopping. This next week should be very good for you. For Taurus has Rahu in the 12th, in the 11th house. Venus is in the 8th house, so that indicates unseen problems or maybe even being lied to by relationship partners. But the relationship partners will also bring in money. Moon's in the 4th house. That's good for financial gains for this sign. Ketu's in the 5th. Children will seem to be a little bit difficult to deal with. And over here, Sun is in the 9th house, Saturn's in the 10th. That's basically a good combination for career success or career luck. But you should watch out for jealous friends, and you should also watch out for overspending, for over-optimism. So just make sure you keep a little bit of money to the side. For Gemini rising, or Gemini sun, or Gemini moon, as again, as we said, June 16th to July 16th in a Vedic chart. The best thing here is we have Venus, Mars, and Mercury in the 7th house. So this will give unconventional or unusual relationship partners some misrepresentation by relationship partners. So people not being entirely honest with you or business partners. And Moon is in the third house, so that strong desire for improving, achieving personal goals. Ketu's in the fourth house, a lot of arguments at home, unfortunately, and some with spouse. And Sun's in the eighth house, so goals will have to be done in secret or in private. Saturn's in the ninth house, good for work, but again, a bit of a struggle. There will be some fame, but also some fear of embarrassment for this sign this month. Jupiter's in the 11th house, good for financial gains, but slow. For Cancer, the Lord of the first house is in the second house. That's usually a good combination for financial luck. Ketu's in the third. Jupiter's in the 10th house of career. Rahu being in the ninth house, it indicates difficult to please teachers or bosses, but also good luck in career matters. And also, let me just see here, Ketu's in third house, a lot of fearlessness for this sign. Mercury, Venus, Mars in sixth house, a lot of competition for this sign. Relationship life is very strongly focused for this sign, although again, you will have some trouble communicating with relationship partners. Saturn's in the eighth house. Rahu is in the ninth house, which we've already gone through. So not a bad week for Cancer, but you will have to be careful about enemies and also competitors. For Leo, the Lord of the 12th is in the first house. So again, a little bit of over expenditure of financial resources. I think with K2 in the second house, there could be some ignorance that family members, especially children, may be overspending and maybe actually not being entirely honest with you about it. Spouse is being a little bit cold or detached right now. Rahu's in the eighth house, so relationship partner will seem to be a little bit canny or sneaky. Sun's in the sixth house, so this makes this sign very competitive. Overall, it's not a bad luck week for this particular sign, but you'll see a lot more ability to bring dreams or ambitions to the surface next week. Jupiter is well placed in the ninth house. And again, a lot of competition in work life, very, very strong levels of competition in work life. Saturn aspects the moon, there'll be some fame for the sign this week. For Virgo, Virgo has Ketu in the first house. That's always a bit problematic. It can give memory problems. It can give minor health problems. Can make these individuals really susceptible to losing their temper, especially with Mars in an angle. And there seems to be a lot of burden placed on this particular house because of Mars, Mercury, and Venus being in the seventh, in the fourth house, and a lot of home responsibilities, but a lot of educational activity too. But the downside to this is the educational activities will seem like they're kind of a waste of time. You'll spend a lot of time separating good ideas from bad ideas. Sun's in the fifth house. That's actually good for luck overseas and financial gains. Moon is Lord of the 11th, is in the 12th, so expenses because of friends. Saturn is aspecting the moon, some additional fame, but overseas. Jupiter's in the eighth house. again, a lot of exploring of metaphysical or spiritual subjects, or even research into different areas. Rahu is in the seventh house. When this pattern occurs, it's always important to be careful about who you link up with relationally, or in terms of business or romance, because people will be hiding things from you, or they'll not be quite what they seem to be. The Saturn aspect of Jupiter is more than likely. These folks, when Jupiter moves into the ninth house, it's a lot better. So after May, that's actually a better time for pursuing relationships or business partnerships. But right now, just be a little bit, you'll be attracted to a lot of different people. Just be a little bit cautious. Sun is in the fifth house. That's already a good combination for overseas success, as I said before. So overall, this is not a bad week for Virgo. It's just sort of like a slow slog as opposed to a rapid progress. For Libra, Libra has Saturn in the sixth house in its own sign. That's actually good. Venus, Mercury, and Mars are in the third house. This will give this sign a good opportunity to promote itself. But again, be careful about over-representing yourself or misrepresenting your skills or your abilities. Sun is in the fourth house, a lot of attention on home life. I'm sorry, Sun is in the fourth house. Saturn's in the fifth house. My apologies. Saturn's in the fifth house. So that's actually good for hard work and life through hard work. The Lord of the sixth house is in the eighth house. That's actually good. So that will give you ability to defeat enemies rather easily. It's the sixth Lord in the seventh house. I'm really screwed up today. Sixth Lord is in the seventh house. Rahu's in the sixth house. Good abilities to overcome fear or phobias or fear of success. Jupiter in the seventh house, you may find relationship partners opposing your goals or dreams or ambitions. Moon is in the 11th house, good for gain through career and through overall luck. Whew. Sorry about that, guys. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Venus, Mars, Mercury in the second house. Good for luck, good for financial growth. But again, the integrity issue is important, so just be a little bit honest with people about what they can expect from you. Sun is in the third house, so a lot of courage for the sign. Saturn's in the fourth house, giving the sign a great deal of authority, especially in luck and career matters and in financial gains. Rahu's in the fourth house, some dissatisfaction with home life. Rahu's in the fifth house, some dissatisfaction with children. Jupiter's in the sixth. Children will fight you or cause you some financial problems. Seventh house, Lord Venus, so there can be some despair or dissatisfaction from wife or relationship partner. And Moon is in the 10th house, so some career recognition or gains, but unfortunately not a lot of financial growth because of that. Although this does form a kind of a wealth-producing combination from unexpected sources in this particular chart. For Capricorn, let me just see if I clear my voice a little bit. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Sun in the first house, and has the eighth Lord in the first house. So there's a lot of interest in exposing your talents. Saturn's in the second house, so slow financial gains, but they will be there. aspecting the fourth house, and Rahu in the third house. So that gives a lot of ambition to improve home life. There'll also be additional expenditures on home life and some potential for sexual dalliances if you're not careful. If you're interested in it, then that's what you'll end up getting, but I'd advise against it at this particular time of year. Okay. Jupiter's aspecting the moon in this chart. That's very good for financial gains for the sign, and it's even better for Aquarius, which we'll get to in a second. And Ketu's in the ninth house, so it can give unexpected breaks and opportunities, especially from foreign countries. So that's a good thing. So this isn't a bad week for Capricorn. Not blessed. No particular chart is blessed this week. For Aquarius, Saturn's in the first house, gives a good ability to command, to take control of things. Again, a lot of expenses because of relationship partners. Okay. Mercury, Venus, and Mars are in the 11th house, so there will be some financial gains for the sign and some friendships, but friendships will be a little bit insincere, just to be honest with you. Rahu's in the second house. The Lord of the second is in the third, so there will be ability to earn money. Moon is in the seventh house. It'll give a great deal of recognition to this particular sign. Okay. Ketu's in the eighth. There'll be a lot of interest in weird or unusual subjects over the next week. Finally, for Pisces, Pisces has Rahu in it, which I said is bad for institutions, but good for establishing faith in yourself and in your abilities, as opposed to relying on others. Jupiter's in the second house. That's very good for expanding wealth. And also, if you have a writing job, very good for writing luck. Venus is in the 10th house. Very good career growth. Sun is in the 11th. Good financial success from hidden topics or hidden areas. Saturn's in the 12th. Everybody has to look out for spending too much this month, I'm afraid. So overall, not a bad month. Let's look at the time and space change chart. All right, so we're still going to have some volcanic activity in Hawaii, I think, mainly because of this, and also some problems with government officials lying in both Alaska and Hawaii. The sun line is running through Western Canada. Sun is in Capricorn, so there won't be a lot of change in that part of the world. The moon is in California, Nevada, close to Arizona, Idaho, Montana. A lot of potential for, and there's a Saturn line also running over it. So some potential for natural catastrophes, especially in northern Nevada and Washington State. I'm sorry, and Oregon, my apologies. And even up near Montana, and I think we had something like that already this past week. There's a big Venus line running right through Texas. So this kind of reflects the border issue that's going on right now between the president and the governor of Texas. and also it's running through Mexico, and it's not interfering with anything else, and up through Canada. I had heard there was an envoy of truckers heading down to Texas. I'm not sure if they're coming from Canada or from elsewhere. I don't know exactly what that's about. But Venus is essentially connected with commerce. So yeah, I find that interesting. As a Rahu line, there'll be some kind of scandal over equal rights or economics in middle Canada, in the middle part of Canada over here. Mercury, Mars, some scandal with the Canadian governments of Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, all the way down through, I believe that's Mississippi, and all the way down through Central America, Nicaragua. Now, as we go over here, you see there's a Jupiter line running through pretty much through Bolivia, Argentina, and also a sun line. So we can expect to see more government control, more scandals of government, especially in Peru, Ecuador, Chile. As I told you a few weeks ago, Ecuador is experiencing some really serious problems in terms of control. And so is Argentina. Brazil looks like it's having some financial difficulties to me over here. There's a Venus line, so flooding or inclement weather on the west coast of Africa over here near the Ivory Coast. Iceland has a sun line going through it, and there's a Rahu line. So some government disruption in London, in England, Ireland, also in France, and all the way through Libya, and down through the tip in Africa. And this will probably flow through a little bit. So definitely a government scandal in France. Jupiter is running through Finland, Denmark. There was something that came out about Denmark last week, and it wasn't about and I think it has something to do with the EU, but I can't remember exactly what it was. This line is also running through Germany. So Germany is trying to establish the best route for itself going forward, also through Algeria and down into down near Yemen and Sudan. So the United States is having some problems. There's a moon line running with Yemen, excuse me, and the Sudan. And there's a moon line running through Turkey right now. So there'll be a lot of focus on Turkey and also Saudi Arabia and all the way down through Madagascar. And I think some government repression in Saudi Arabia, possibly in Turkey as well, and possibly in Ukraine, because of that Saturn line there. The next big line we see is a Venus line running through central Russia, and also Iran. This will affect Iran too, by the way. So this area right here, there's a lot of focus, obviously, on Israel. So that moon line is running right through Israel and Palestine. So that's obviously a lot of focus, and a lot of unwillingness to compromise on both sides. I think. Excuse me. There's a Venus line running right through India. Given how Venus is associated This could mean some government scandals, some lies, but also some heavy rainfall. And as we go over here, definitely government scandals in Ladakh and Bangladesh and into Singapore. I think one of the things I'm seeing over here is this line, this descending Rahu line, is going up this way over Russia and over China. So there'll be some dissatisfaction or some disagreement between those parts of the world. A lot of government control in China, not a big surprise, but also there'll be new mandates to make people fall in line in Borneo and Australia. And we have a Jupiter line running over through close to North Korea and South Korea, and the moon line going over Japan. So these areas will be heavily in the news. So will the Philippines. And so will Guinea. I think, the other thing I want to say, Guyana is going to be very heavily in the news over the next few weeks. The last part I want to look at is the Saturn line. So it looks like to me like Australia is experiencing some really rigid controls. And finally, as we head towards New Zealand has this Mars Mercury lines. So there'll be some scandal connected with people lying to the government. I will come back on the air next week. Hopefully, I will have my guests lined up that I promised I'd have you by that time. In the meanwhile, I'd like to encourage you all to subscribe, share, and comment. And if you want to give me a like, that'd be great. It's a small click for you, but it means a lot to me. I love you all. Thank you all so much for watching. And I wish you a happy and prosperous week. And we'll talk real soon. Again, study your readings. Contact me 508-525-0001. Thanks again for watching and have a great week, everyone. I love you all. Bye-bye.